Good afternoon, everybody. This is Brian Ankney with Auto Success Magazine. I would like to thank you for taking the time out of your day to join us today. Today, my guest is Arthur Desson, and he's with SpinCar. We're going to talk about retargeting like the pros. I imagine that probably a lot of you on the call, or hopefully all of you on the call, are using some form of retargeting right now, and you're here because you feel like you'd like to be doing it better and want to make sure you're doing everything you can to generate as much business as possible. You came to the right place. Before we get started, I'd like to go over just a couple things. One, please ask questions as we go. Arthur would like to answer questions as they come up, and so please ask us questions as we move through the presentation. A couple ways you can do that. Now, one, this is something that's kind of new to our webinars. If you would like to talk directly to Arthur and tell him the question that you have, just raise your hand. It's on the panel that runs down the right side of your screen. Raise your hand, and it will let me know that you have a question. And then what I will do is I will unmute your microphone when Arthur's ready to take the question, and let you know that now your mic is live and you can interact with him directly. And as we answer the question. Now, for those of you that are a little, I guess, more microphone shy, and there's nothing wrong with that, go ahead and type in questions like you have on other webinars that we've done in the past. And for those of you that are new to Auto Success webinars, it's very simple. If you're on a laptop, a desktop, or a tablet, on the right side of your screen, that GoToWebinar pane, you're going to click on questions. There's a little arrow right next to questions. That'll open up a box. You type it in, you hit enter, and we're able to see your question. Now, if you are on a mobile device, which I imagine a lot of you at the dealership are, depending on the manufacturer, the operating system, there's a few different ways it works. In a nutshell, you either have a picture frame around your screen, you have a header or a footer, and somewhere on that is a question mark. Touch the question mark. It'll open up a place for you to type in your question, and you hit enter, and your question is asked. We're able to see it. Now, getting back to the presentation, depending on your device, you might be able to just swipe. If you swipe and it doesn't work, look for it's an icon that looks like a flat screen monitor on a desk, like you have on top of your desk for your computer. Go ahead and touch that. It should bring you back into the webinar. Now, for whatever reason, if you should get disconnected, the same link, the same phone number that you used to join us right now, it will work to bring you right back in. Now, the last thing I'd like to mention before we get started is if you haven't joined Auto Success webinars yet on Facebook, please do. It's a group where you can interact with the Auto Success staff and suggest topics. You can interact with our speakers. Most importantly, you can interact with each other. A lot of the things we talk about are complex. It's not real easy, flip a switch, and now we're doing something better. So as you try to implement the changes that you learn, please share your successes and failures with each other, and hopefully we can all achieve what we're trying to achieve from these webinars a little bit quicker. Now, with all that being said, I would like to turn the reins over to Arthur. Please take us away, my friend.
Thanks, Brian. So in this webinar, we're going to kind of go over, why some of the dealers, the majority of the dealers that we've dealt with, why they're experiencing kind of these underwhelming results with their retargeting efforts, and what they can learn and what they can apply from these larger retailers that are doing it really well. And I'm sure you guys are familiar with many of those, so we're going to take a specific look at some of the best ones, like Kayak, Warby Parker, and Amazon, and then you'll be able to apply those kind of best practices to further your retargeting efforts, actually make your dollars work harder. So first and foremost, my name is obviously Arthur Desson. I am the VP of Ad Technology at SpinCar. And ad tech stands for, really, it's a huge umbrella term that encompasses a lot of different things. But if you boil it down to the simplest form, ad technology is really any software or technology that can improve ad performance. So that's what I do. That's what we do. And now we can kind of walk you guys through some information I think you'll find pretty relevant, and then we'll kind of dig through retargeting itself. And again, I know Brian has already mentioned this, but if you have any questions, feel free to just, as they come, ask them. I'm not a huge fan of waiting to the end and then going through different questions, because then you might forget them. So feel free to just raise your hand and I'll answer them on the fly. So first, not understanding how familiar each and every one of you is with retargeting, I wanted to just kind of convey a very simple graphic. So here on the site here on the page, you'll see what retargeting is in its simplest form. An internet user visits your site, right? He's looking at your inventory. most of your visitors leave your site without submitting a form, and retargeting just follows them across their devices, across different websites they look at, with the objective of reinteresting them with the ad and driving them back to your site, where then hopefully it can convert and then obviously become a happy car buyer. So that's what retargeting is in a nutshell, but it can get really sophisticated. And one of the most important things about retargeting is why can it be used, or how can it be leveraged to drive more conversions and subsequently drive more car sales. So what we want to first look at is to understand your site traffic, what it's doing. You know, if you have 10,000 visitors, 12,000 visitors, 5,000 visitors, what are they doing? Are they looking at your vehicles, and how should you use that data to retarget? So I think once you understand that, you'll conclude yourself that retargeting is an important tool, both to grow market share and leads, but also to kind of displace a lot of your competitors. So let's take a look at this. So your site traffic. On average, any dealership, or the average dealership across the U.S., is about 10,000 visitors coming to their site every month, right? And that's the average. So your dealership might have a lot more, or it could have less. So we take a look at this and we say, okay, that's a lot of potential car sales. There's 10,000 people coming to my site for a reason, right? They're coming in to look at my cars. But if you dig deeper and you see who's actually looking at your inventory, who's actually raising their hand and telling you, hey, I'm interested in buying a car from you, those are the most important people, right? And you can tell that it's probably not all 10,000 of those visitors. So 43% is the number, right? It's an important number for one reason, because that's the percentage of your site traffic that actually ends up looking at your inventory. So if your dealer attracts 10,000 visitors per month, of which I know you guys work really hard in driving, from traditional to digital, to conquesting, the email marketing, all of that you do is to drive eyeballs to your inventory. So that means that you have 4,300 people, if you have a site of 10,000 visitors, actively looking at specific vehicles that you sell, right? So that's quite a lot of potential car buyers still that are on your site looking at your inventory. So the question is, what happens to all those in-market car shoppers? If there's 4,300 of them that are going to the SRP, sorting the SRP by price, by model, by range, then telling you this is the car that I want, you should be selling a shit ton of cars, right? I mean, you should be selling 1,000 vehicles. If there's 4,300 that are actively in the market telling your dealership you might have the right car from. Obviously, that is not the case for most dealerships. And what actually ends up happening is that the majority of your site visitors never buy a car from you. So when we're looking at your total site traffic, we understand that 98.3% of those potential car buyers don't end up buying a car from you. So that means that many of them are either buying a car at a competitor's, or they're going in the private marketplace like a Craigslist or an eBay, but you're converting 1.67% of them, right? So those people had an initial interest in buying a car from you, hence why they were on your site looking at vehicles, but they just didn't end up buying from you. And that's totally okay, by the way. That's just the nature of the web and how much research they do. But you have to believe that there's a lot of car sales happening with that 4,300 number, or inside that 4,300 number, that you're not currently capturing, right? You have to kind of make that assumption. So that's where retargeting comes into place, and let's do the math here. So if you look at this simple table on your screen, we'll take a look at a dealer with about 10,000 visitors, and that means that he's got about 5,500 of those 10,000 actually ends up going to a new or used or a CPO VDP, or an SRP, I'm sorry, so a search results page. So they're hitting new, used, and CPO. At that point, 4,300 of them actually end up clicking on a specific vehicle after they've sorted that search results page. So this specific dealership sells about 168 cars. So here's a good exercise for you guys to do, and we have this down to kind of a pretty precise science. So the conversion rate is 1.68% of your total visitors. That's about the number of cars that you'll sell based off the number of visitors. So what you should do is take a look at the number of cars you sell, divide it by the number of visitors that you have, and check out what your conversion rate is. Is it above the average of 1.68%? If so, then you're doing a pretty good job at converting those site visitors. And if it's below, then you have some work to do, but at least you know where you stand. right? So that's a really important exercise to do, which anybody can do. All you need to know is how many people come to your site a month and how many cars that you sell. So what should really be important to you, though, are the SRP visitors, right? So now we're digging into who's important, who's a valuable asset, which ones of your visitors should you be retargeting. So we're going to look at SRP visitors and, of course, your VDP visitors. So those particular visitors are your most valuable asset, right? And we always stress this, saying, look, you guys spend a ton of money driving people to your site, right? I mean, you do. You spend $400, $500 per car, which means you're spending a tremendous amount per visitor. So they really should be considered gold to you. So if they're raising your hand and the SRP visitors are telling you, hey, Jim, or hey, Mike, here are the cars that I'm interested in. I'm interested in a Chevy. I'm interested in the Cadillac ATS between $30,000 to $40,000 with leather seats, right? That's important data that they're telling you that you should use. Then the VDP visitors are also telling you then what particular vehicle they have an interest in, right? So they're telling you not only what vehicles they are interested, but they're also giving you a range of vehicles they're considering buying. So this kind of simple graph kind of visualizes the waterfall of how they progress through your site. So the problem is that when you look at VDP visits, they're super costly. Most dealers don't know or don't kind of have the numbers set as to how much they're spending to get eyeballs to look at one vehicle. And if you look at that number, it's $16. So the average dealership is spending $16 to get somebody to look at a VDP. So that's an incredible amount of money. And remember that a huge swath of those people never end up buying a car from you, right? But you're still shelling out that $16 for the potential that they might buy a car from you. So the next question you should ask yourself, which is why we always ask ourselves, is why is this figure so high? I mean, $60, it seems like a crazy amount. Well, if you check out this slide that's coming up, this one's really important to abide by, and it's because it's proven, right? So this is a really important statement. So if you look at it, you have to understand it, and you have to agree with it, that it's going to be far cheaper, far more cost-effective for you to convert people who have expressed interest in the cars that you sell than those that did not, right? That's why retargeting came into existence in the first place, is because companies knew, hey, somebody who checked out my website is probably more likely to buy from me than somebody who hasn't checked out my website. Or vice versa in the real world scenario, somebody who walked in my store and looked at a bunch of stuff and left, if I could follow him with advertising, I could probably get him to buy at a much higher rate than somebody who has yet to walk in my store. So that's why retargeting came into existence, and that's why it's so important. And by the way, this statement's been proven by looking at leads. When we look at calls, text, chat, other form fills, doesn't matter what it is, credit apps, trade-in requests, get e-price on new or used vehicles. Take a look at this. This is pretty cool. So repeat visitors convert 64% higher than first-time visitors. Right, so that's really, really important. It's pretty statistically significant. So it's critical for you guys to spend a good amount of energy and obviously a good amount of money on trying to bring back the consumer to VDPs. Not only just bring back any consumer, but bring back those that are actually expressed a real deep interest in buying a car from you, right? They were really engaged with your inventory. If you can get those guys back before your competitor does, you win the game, right? You dominate market share. But here's the problem. You guys have a super tough job. We know this because of how convoluted the car purchase, the car buying process is, and the car buying journey. You guys know it. I'm sure you hear there's hundreds of speakers. You read tons of blogs, right, about how they're going to all these different sources and they're asking their friends, and it's really hard to know how to reach them. But you should know a couple things. One is the average car buyer in any market across the U.S., right, any DMA, they're going to 12 local dealership sites before buying a car. So they're not, and this isn't specific to any dealer, right? It's going to be tier 3 dealerships. So that excludes Cars.com, Car Gurus, True Cars. This is specifically people going to tier 3 dealerships in your market. So they're going to 12. On top of that, they're actually generating 900 digital interactions from the time they enter the market to the time they actually end up buying a car, right? So they're doing a lot of research. They're jumping from mobile to tablet to desktop. They're calling dealers. They're submitting forms in not just your dealership, but they're submitting forms at probably half a dozen other dealerships. And all their objective is they're doing their due diligence. They're trying to find what car is best for them, who's got best value, who's got the best price. You can't blame them. But unfortunately for you guys, it kind of sucks because it becomes really hard to try to figure out who's actually worth spending money to try to convert. So here's kind of the question you should ask yourself is, are you there? Are you present as that person leaves your site? Remember, the average dealership has 10,000 visitors. Are you there and are you present showing them the exact car across all of the research? I don't care if they go to 15 other dealerships. I don't care if they go to Yahoo, CNN. I don't care if they're playing an app, a game on their phone. I don't care if they're going to TrueCars or Cars.com. If they've accessed your site and they left without converting, are you there across any of those mediums? Are you present showing those ads, right? And you can do that through a really robust retargeting program. And remember, odds are you probably have the car that they want. You probably have the car that they're going to end up buying. The tricky part is, how do you convey that information? How do you recapture their interest? How do you show them the right inventory so that you can actually tell them, look, Brian, I got the car that you need. It's right here. Come buy it from me. I have the best value, a great staff, etc. So that's the question you ought to be asking yourself all the time is, are you there across that journey? So the next thing is, let's kind of dig into retargeting itself. Before I dig into that, I want to make sure that since there weren't any questions asked, and I know that the first speaker is always the hardest speaker, so I wanted to stop and ask if there were any questions at this point before we kind of dig in the retargeting best practices, how retailers are running it, and I'll show you a strong anatomy of a good, solid retargeting ad. So any questions at this point?
You know, right now we don't have any hands raised, and we don't have any questions typed in. You know, everybody type them in or raise your hand, and we'll get them answered for you. Yeah, Arthur, I'll let you know once we start getting something in.
Awesome. Yeah, let me know. And I think once we kind of dig into how an ad looks, there might be more questions there. And I just wanted to make sure that everybody had a full understanding of how important their site visitors are and how to segment them. So I'll go ahead and, Brian, obviously let me know if any questions do come up. So, you know, what's important is, you know, the percentage of budgets that retailers spend on retargeting. Retailers spend 10 to 50% of their entire digital budgets on retargeting, right? So the question we always ask is, or when we first started was, well, why do retailers spend so much money on retargeting, right? They're allocating almost half of their budget on retargeting, and many dealers out there, believe it or not, aren't even spending a single dollar on retargeting, forget the majority of the budgets. So if we take a look at this, the obvious reason is when it's done really well, when it's executed properly, it drives conversions, right? They know if it's executed right, it'll be a really helpful tool in fueling those transactions. And obviously, a lot of them is much easier because they can actually buy stuff online, which the car buying process is getting there, but it's in infancy, so it's not quite there. But they know the logic that if you follow somebody that spent a lot of time looking at their inventory, odds are you can convert them. And not only that, you can convert them super cost effectively. So how do the pros retarget? How does a company like Amazon, Warby Parker, Pottery Barn, how do they retarget and drive sales from their retargeting? You know, not just check the box that, yep, they're doing retargeting. So here's another nice little graphic that's pretty easy. So first of all, they obviously get a very detailed, clean feed of their inventory. You need to do inventory-based retargeting, and you need to be able to integrate your feeds so that you can actually populate the right pieces of merchandise in front of the right person, right? At this point, then they actually personalize the ads in real time to actually show them the inventory that specific person looked at, and it actually syncs up with them. Lastly is the ads are so personalized that the right person sees the right ad that's relevant at the right time, because that they know a system that's personalized, that has real-time automation, and that offers the products that person looks at, puts them in the position to capture that sale far greater than their competitors who don't do that, right? So getting the right ad with the right content in front of the right person is very, very important. So here's their pillars of success. And Brian, I just had something pop on my screen that said that there was no connectivity. I wanted to make sure that this slide is appearing.
Yes, I see it.
Okay. So the pillars of success are as following, right? If you ask me, Arthur, just lay out the pillars of success and let me know what they do well. So first and foremost, they retarget visitors based on engagement. Don't just retarget everybody that comes to your site. You get a lot of crap traffic to your site. You get a lot of bot traffic and all of that junk, right? You want to retarget based on engagement. 2, track how visitors browse your inventory. That's really important. A solid, robust, sophisticated retargeting software will actually follow Brian as he's actually shopping for your cars to understand not only the cars he's interested in, but the broad range of characteristics that is going to sell him that car. Generate an ad that's personalized to that visitor. No one wants to see a pre-created ad that's generic, that's not relevant to them, right? That ad should be really, really tailored to that individual person. Incorporate an inventory recommendation engine. You guys know better than most. Somebody walks in, they want to buy a car, they think they want to buy a car, and they end up buying a totally different vehicle. So it's important to be able to recommend other vehicles that you have in inventory. These guys, the pros, do that really well. I'm sure you guys have seen on Amazon, and we'll show you in a second. They look at what you looked at, and they know because you looked at this piece of merchandise, you're likely to buy this other piece of merchandise. So that's important as well. In the ad itself, give consumer product options within the ad. Don't just kind of corner yourself just by showing them one car. You have to show them a variety of vehicles that you think they might be interested in. Have top-tier ad inventory. This is super problematic in this industry, and I'll show you in a second what I mean by that. And then track success on what we call post-click. Once they click the ad, are you tracking everything? Your Google Analytics, are you setting up event tracking? Are you setting up conversion tracking? Do you understand what's driving your phone calls, your text, your chat, your lead forms, your credit apps? All that can easily be tracked. You guys can do it in 2 seconds. It's super easy, and you can take more control as to what your audience is doing on your site. So let's take a look at how Kayak retargets. You guys, I'm sure, are familiar with Kayak. I use it all the time. It's the only site I use to book travel. The guy sold it for like $1.8 billion, I think, to Travelocity. It was doing really well. But let's take a look at an ad. So here's USA Today. Just recently, homepage on top of the site. Here's the ad itself from kayak.com. 3 things that you'll notice from this ad. Number 1, premium ad placement, right? They understand Arthur is looking at these various hotels of these cities. He's likely to book. He didn't book through us. We want our ad to be seen very quickly so that we can get that booking versus our competitor. So they're getting premium placement ad, which is really, really important, right? Good ad quality. 2, take a look at this. Ad is personalized based on my search. It's showing me hotels in New York, Naples, Venice, Rome, where I frequently look for hotels, right? So it's not just showing me a kayak book here. It's showing me a very personalized ad based on how I search on their site. 3, take a look at this. It's giving me options. It's not just saying, oh, Arthur's interested in hotels in New York. It's showing me a bunch of different options, and it's going to allow me to decide which one I want to click on. And each one goes to a respective page that's relevant to that click. So if I clicked hotels in Rome, I'd land on the hotels in Rome booking page, right? So that's really important. Let's take a look at a totally different retailer. Not sure if you guys are familiar with Warby Parker. It's a nice startup, valued at about $2 billion, started by a couple guys. But if you take a look at it, take a look at this ad. This is pretty cool. Here it is, Warby Parker ad for the Shop Barkley large sunglasses. So the first thing you'll notice, it's got a really engaging ad integration. It's not your static ad that everybody sees where you can have what we call banner blindness. It's shoved in between 2 news stories, and it's what we call sponsored content integration. It like mimics a news story. So that's the first part. 2 is, take a look at this. It's actually detailing me relevant product description. So it's saying Shop Barkley large. Ever wanted a larger version of our goes with everything Barkley frame? Yeah, I actually do want that. That's why I was shopping. Yeah, I forgot. Yeah, I do want it. Whether to fit wider faces or just wear a little oversized, awesome. I have a huge wide face. These are the sunglasses that I need, right? So they're showing me relevant content within the ad unit. And what they're doing is they're only paying when somebody actually clicks on that specific ad. If I don't click on this particular ad, which this is really important, guys, because you should run your retargeting this way, You should only pay when somebody actually clicks, when the ad performs, right, which is what Warby Parker is doing. And lastly, if I do click, I'm driven right back to that specific Barkley large sunglass landing page. I'm not being driven back to the home page or some other page, right? So I'm being driven to a relevant landing page. Obviously, we're going to take a look at how Amazon does it. So you guys know 18% of Amazon's revenue is generated from what they call the recommendation engine. That recommendation engine is piped into the retargeting, which is really important, right? Because one of the first things we said was have a really good recommendation engine. So let's take a look at the ad. Here's Fox News, top of the page, home page of Fox News. Here's the ad, right? Not particularly like aesthetically pleasing. It's actually pretty boring, right? Pretty basic. But here's what it does. Number one, it's 100% viewable ad. So it's a premium ad placement. I'm not going to miss it. Amazon says, shit, this guy's looking for Levi's 511 slim fit jeans. He didn't buy. He's probably looking elsewhere. I want him to buy at my store. So they're ensuring that their ad is seen, and they're letting me know, Arthur, take a look at this. Levi men's 511 slim fit jeans, 43 to 46 bucks. It's showing me the exact inventory I looked at. And then what it's doing as a separate part of the ad unit, see this is where it says more items to consider. It's actually recommending me inventory that they think I might be interested in by how I browse their inventory. So it's saying, Arthur, here's Levi's 511. By the way, if you've already bought these for whatever reason, or if you're not interested, we also offer this that you might be interested in. So that's really important. So that's a really well-constructed retargeting ad. Let's take a look at how most dealers are retargeting their visitors, right? And some of you may be more sophisticated, so this might not apply to you, but we see this a lot. So here's an ad. This is VW of downtown LA, and you could tell the first thing, very generic creative. There's static creative that was probably pre-built by someone, and as you can see here, it just says view inventory. So it's generic creative, right? Not really relevant. Who the hell would click on that? Beyond my understanding. Two is poor ad placement. I actually have to go to like CNN, I think Opinion, scroll down the page, and at the bottom of the page, I saw the ad on the right side, right? And I'll show you why poor ad placement is even more costly for you guys, for the dealership. Third, take a look at this. If I clicked on this, it would drive me back to the home page, right? So that's really bad because I don't want to land on a home page. There's nothing to get from a home page on a dealer's site. I've already been to that dealer's site, remember. Then I'm driving back to the home page. That's not good. Also, they're paying by the impression. That's why it's problematic when you have poor ad placement, because if you're paying by the impression and you're not paying per click, what happens? No one's incentivized to have your ad actually seen, right? I don't care where your ad shows if you're paying me by the impression. I don't care if it never shows. I don't care if it shows at the bottom of the page because you're paying me either way. Your interest, the objective should be more aligned with performance. So let's take a look at a very solid ad, right? Let's take a look at the anatomy of a good dealership ad. So take a look at this one. Here's USA Today. Again, same time frame as the one that you saw previously for Kayak. Take a look at this. Here's the ad. This is Mancari's. And you could see that it's prime ad placement. Again, top of the home page on one of the most trafficked sites in the world. Beautiful ad placement. Number two, this is pretty interesting. You can actually interact and dig into the inventory of this specific dealership. So the consumer, it's as if he was on your website, he's actually digging through your inventory to find something that he might want. So we're giving him the option to browse your inventory right within the ad unit. Three, the actual inventory is personalized within the ad. As you can tell, obviously, it's not just some static, boring ad. It's personalized to the vehicles I looked at. And also take a look at this. This is showing me monthly estimated payment as an example, but that's relevant vehicle details. That's something I might be interested in. Look, I'm just looking for something that's under 400 bucks per month, right? I don't really care what I get. So that's, Mancari's is piping in actual estimated monthly payments, right? Which you can do anything, trim, feature, vehicle options like heated seats, but that's important. And if they do click, if I clicked on this Ram 1500, I should be taken, and I am taken back to that specific VDP. So then I have the choice to which vehicle fits what I'm looking for. If not, I can interact with this ad. And if I do click, it's driving me right to that page, right? So that's really, really important. And by the way, consumers expect personalized experiences. Are you kidding? If you have ever shopped anywhere, everything is all about like tailoring to your interest and tailoring to what you looked at. So this huge study was done by Marketing Dive, and out of all the respondents, which were about 10,000, 71% said that they prefer ads that are tailored to their interests, right? And those ads, by the way, perform 7 times better than generic ads. So it's really, really important, both on the consumer's end and on your end, to personalize that ad experience because you have all the data. You know what cars he's looking at. You know what he's interested in. Also, always run your retargeting on a pay-per-click model. We can't stress this enough. You should not be paying by the impression, right? You're going to say, well, Art, why should I pay on a pay-per-click? I'm running on a CPM. I'm running it through whoever. I'm selling 400 cars a month. I'm dominating market share. I don't care, right? I'm performing really well. Well, here's the fact that most people don't know, or the stat. Only 44% of the ads that you pay for are actually seen by someone. So think about that. If you're paying by the impression, might as well take that check that you're sending out to whoever's running your retargeting campaign, and 56% of it, so cut 56% of your check, that's not even going anywhere, right? You can just toss it in the trash, right? It's just wasted money. So it has to be aligned with a pay-per-click model, because if your ad's not seen, it can't be clicked on, and if it's not clicked on, then you're not paying for it, right? So ensure that you're running on a PPC model. So when
we've got some questions. We've got some questions.
Sure, I'll stop right here. Yep.
Actually, we've got several. What if we want to do static ads for branding?
That's a good question. So, really good question. So branding ads shouldn't really be used for retargeting. It could be used for other types of display, because why would you want to brand something or someone who's already been to your site, right? They've already been branded, right? They've already gone to your site, so you touch them in some way, shape, or form. Once they go to your site, they then tell you what they're interested in. Use that data against them to try to capture that interest. So we don't recommend running branding ads for retargeting.
Okay. Is this advertising on Google's shopping network?
This is not advertising on Google Shopping Network. And one reason that is Google Shopping Network is only restricted to selling stuff on Google, so it has to be actual merchandise. I guess you could sell cars on Google, which is feasible, but so no, it does not include Google Shopping Network.
All right. How can we be sure we pay by the click and not by the impression?
Good question. So, I mean, it just depends who the vendor is running it, right? If the vendor is running on a pay-per-click model, then he's got really nothing to hide, and he's probably more. So anybody that runs on a pay-per-click model is incentivized to drive performance, right? And it really means that if they're able to charge you on a pay-per-click model, then they probably have good inventory, ad inventory, because they know if my ad is seen, it'll be clicked on. So I would just ask your vendor or your web provider, whoever's running it, your agency, hey, can you do a pay-per-click model, right? Which is the only thing that we run, but you should just ask whoever might be running your campaign currently.
All right. If they look at an SUV, should we just show them SUVs in the ad?
Good question. I mean, that's the beauty of a pay-per-click, and that's the beauty of giving them options within the ad unit. So we wouldn't corner ourselves in just showing them SUVs. If you give them an option of, say, 4 SUVs and 2 sedans in an ad unit, let him decide what to click on, right? If he clicks on the SUV, great, you're only paying for that click. And if you're not showing him if you're showing him a sedan and he's not interested in the sedan, what he's going to do is he's going to ignore the ad, and you're not paying for that impression. So again, that goes back to the beauty of only paying per click. But no, I wouldn't say that you should only show them SUV unless they've come back to your site 3 times and only looked at SUVs, and maybe that would be wise, yeah.
Okay. Are the payments based on the customer's info or generic?
Those payments would be based off the feed that your feed provider or the web provider would supply. So it would actually either be lease payments, or they would be generic monthly estimated payments.
All right, and we've got one more right now, Arthur. It's and actually this is from the same person that asked our first question. What if we want to do static ads for branding? The second question is also, how do we get premium space?
How do you get premium space? So that's a little tougher of a question because you have to make sure whoever's running the ads has access to that inventory. Not everybody has access. Like that slide that showed you USA Today at the top of the homepage, not a lot of people have access to it. And I'm sure if you look at your dealership sites, whoever asked that question, that is your ad ever showing up in that ad position? The odds are it's probably not. So you have to ask whoever you're thinking of running your retargeting campaign, and frankly any display campaign, do you have access to premium inventory? If you don't run with them. If they do, they're a great partner to actually venture off to do your retargeting because they have the best inventory on the web, which is really important.
All right, that's all the questions that we have for now. If you'd like to continue, I will let you know as more come in.
All right, and that kind of translates well into the next slide, which is what happens when you do all this stuff, right? Arthur, I put everything that you recommended we do. I applied all the best practices that retailers do, which, by the way, it's not a bad thing to learn from the retail and the e-commerce space because, you know, they're really sophisticated with their digital efforts. So it's always nice to extract some insights that you can apply to your dealership. But here's what it does, right? Personalized ads generate a 1.1% click-through rate, which means obviously the percentage of the ads that are clicked on, 1.1%. So to put that in the context, when you execute it right, it compares to a paltry like 0.07% industry average. So a personalized ad, right, when you have intelligent personalized ad with really solid premium inventory, your CTR is going to be CTR, meaning click-through rate, 15 times higher than the industry average, from 0.07% to 1.11%, which is really an important metric because it shows you how relevant the content is of the ad to the person being exposed that ad. If it's clicking at a much higher rate, the creative is much more relevant to what they're looking for, which is important. So then we go into keys of success. Let's list out bullet format the keys of success. First, analyze how a consumer sorts your vehicle listings page. When they're going to new or your CPO or your used vehicles, they're not just infinitely scrolling through your inventory. No one does that. We track all that stuff. Trust me, they don't do that. What they do is they then select by trim, by model, by year, by price range, meaning by budget, by features of the vehicle. So if they're going to a Ford site, they're going to say, look, I'm looking for a Ford Explorer between 40 to 50,000, and I want the preferred accessory package and this trim. They're telling you what they're interested in, so use that data to actually retarget them. Two is you have to track which VDPs they visit. After they've sorted that SRPs, which vehicle do they then visit? Another important thing is how long do they spend on that VDP? If I spend 2 seconds on that VDP and I leave, it's bullshit, right? The guy probably clicked on the wrong ad, on the wrong vehicle, landed on it. You can't do anything in 2 seconds. So make sure you analyze how long they spend on that VDP. Then have a campaign, right? Have a piece of software, partner with somebody good that's able to dynamically build that ad, right? Don't pre-build static creative. It's not going to do you any justice, but dynamically build the ad according to how they sorted the SRP and which vehicles they looked at, and what features they're interested in, and what vehicle options and trim they want to buy through, right? So make sure that you're dynamically building the ad. Ensure your ads are being seen. This is really, really important. Most people think, oh, my click-through rate is low because no one clicks on my ads. No. The click-through rate is shitty because the ads are rarely seen. Remember, 56% of your ads are never seen. The key of winning the game is ensuring that your ads are seen and that your ads are seen quickly. Lastly, please do this. Track what happens when they click and land on your site. Don't just gauge a campaign or judge a campaign by the impressions or by the clicks or by your market share. Look at, are they submitting forms? Okay, they clicked on this vehicle and landed on this VDP. Are they making phone calls? Are they sending me a text? Are they trying to get the e-price? Are they mapping me in Google Maps? All that information you should track, which is very, very simple. At the end, this is the last slide, by the way, but you'll have my contact information. If you don't know how to do that, you want help doing that, we could surely help with that. It's super simple. you can get it done in literally 10 minutes, right? But ensure that you track all those events and all those conversions. So here on your screen and on your slide is a nice kind of 1 through 6, the keys to a successful retargeting campaign. Trust me, follow this advice, try it out. You probably can't do any worse than what you currently have. There's a lot of upside in running a campaign that's like this, and you'll see the results, right? You'll hear it from your consumers. You'll see it in your lead form submission rate increase, and hopefully you'll see it in your car sales. So I want to thank everyone for joining this webinar. So my contact information is on the screen. You have my email. It's art@spincar.com. It's pretty simple. The number on the screen is actually my cell phone number. So you have that. You can text me. You can call me. You can email me. You can whatever you want to do. You can Facebook Messenger me. But my number's there. It's 315-395-6301. But please reach out to me with any questions you might have, whether it's retargeting or Google Analytics. If you just have a quick question, glad to answer it, glad to share my information. So thanks for joining.
This is Brian Ankney again. Arthur, we have one more question here.
Sure.
And actually, before I ask this question, I want to remind everybody, if you have more questions, please type them in now, or if you'd like to interact directly, please raise your hand, and then I will turn on your microphone. Arthur, here's the last question we have right now, is how can we see if they look at the map, and can we be notified?
Yeah, so it's pretty easy. So in your Google Analytics, which most dealerships don't know that, right? And it's fine because it's not your business is selling cars. But in your analytics, your web provider puts what they call event tracking tags. So these track specific clicks on specific buttons and links on your page. So for instance, that's how a web provider knows where to put the optimal place to put a phone number up on the upper right-hand side. So they track all that stuff. So all we have to do is we go in your Google Analytics, we hit events, let's look at all the different events that are tracking, and you'll see one that's map directions. So that's actually somebody directly mapping directions to your dealership, and then what we do is we set up that event as a goal. So then the goal means you can toggle down the goal selector and say, map my directions, and then it'll tell you what drove people to map your directions. It might have been your Google SEM. It might have been a Facebook campaign you're doing. It might have been retargeting. It might have been organic traffic. And then it'll tell you each of those channels and what drove people to map the directions. But that's all included in your event tracking, which is already in your Google Analytics.
All right. Well, everybody, it looks like that's our last question, Arthur. This is Brian Ankney with Auto Success. I would like to invite everybody on this webinar today. If you enjoyed what you saw and if you saw value in it, please join us again for a future webinar. And more specifically to this webinar, if you feel that someone else in your dealership or dealership group might benefit by seeing this webinar, it was recorded. And so you can reach out to Arthur. You can see his email or his phone number up on the screen right now, and he will send you a link to view the recording. Also, if you happen to be driving right now or you're out on the lot, you don't have a pen handy, you will get a thank you email from me. It is an automated email, but it does come from my real email address. So if you just reply to that and ask for either Arthur's contact information or the recording or both, depending on what you'd like to see, I will get that for you. Oh, we have one more question. Looks like it came in. Let's pop that open. Can we get? Oh, yeah. Actually, yes. Our question was, can we get this webinar emailed to us afterwards? Absolutely. Arthur, I really appreciate you taking the time to share all this great information with our audience today. Is there anything you'd like to share with them today before we let them go?
No, I think that's it. I know this ran a bit long. I wanted to make sure that all the information was conveyed. Again, our whole philosophy is that retargeting has been fully underinvested in the automotive vertical. So we hope that this kind of helped position retargeting and helped you guys, the dealers, understand how to run it and how to effectively actually use it to drive conversion. So again, any questions? Let me know.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Have a great afternoon, and I hope to see you again on a future Auto Success webinar.